Welcome to the channel, everyone. Today we're actually going to be doing quite a unique core. The thumbnail does not lie. I am going to attempt to put an orc into the game. I really want to show that you can use a non-standard face and really create something unique. Now, as you can see, the features don't really line up. So what I'm trying to do here is work more from the nose and line that up a little bit better, because we can adjust some of those features to get that right, and we can bring the eyes down and we can bring the mouth up just a little bit so everything lines up with the picture that I've got there. Getting skin tones to match is actually the hardest part. So what I'm actually trying to work with more is the forehead, just to try and match that color up a little bit. Then we're going to do a few other little things just to try and blend in some of those other features. As you adjust some of the features around the head, such as the cheeks, the actual forehead area, it will kind of stretch that image just a little bit on the edges, and it will kind of blend itself in just a little bit. But one good thing working with the male creations is that you can cover some things up with the hair and facial hair and stuff like that. So you've got a little bit more to work with than some of the female characters that you might want to create. The best thing about trying to create an orc is you really don't have to be perfect in any way. You've just got to kind of get everything to look as close as you possibly can, just so that way when you're using the character in game, you don't see any of those little mistakes anywhere. So my thoughts behind this character is to kind of make him like the warlord of the clan. So he's going to be an older orc, someone that's been through quite a lot of battles. So we're going to be using scars and a few things like that. So that way, you know, he does kind of represent that thought that I do have in mind. I think all up, I probably spent a good 10 to 12 hours in Photoshop just trying to put together a few little details that I could use on this character. I've done quite a few tests on some of the attire that I want to use, just to make sure that when I do put it together for you guys, it all turns out really good. Now, what I'm actually trying to do here with the mouth is I'm trying to line the mouth up so it sits just between those two tusks. So any animation that you might see, even if it's just a victory celebration where he might just open his mouth for something, that those tusks don't split in half or anything like that. So it does still kind of look like his mouth is going to function like a proper mouth, even though it's a little bit wider and it does have those tusks on the image. Now, adjusting all of these little facial parts just help really line everything up for what we're going to do down the track. The one thing I really wish that you could do with the ears is just kind of put that little point on the end, just for anyone that wants to do some of those fantasy type characters, that it gives you that little bit more of an option. So what we're really going to go for here instead is just give him some bigger ears, just to make him look a little bit more orcish, I guess. But one of the most challenging parts of this is actually with the nose here, because obviously the image isn't a standard type of nose. So trying to get the nostrils in the right position, just so that it doesn't look out of place, isn't quite as easy as what I would like. But when you raise the height of the nostrils there, it does get very close. So in a way, it just looks like there's an extra layer of skin going over the top there. So it does look kind of British, I guess. And when you see the character in the game, you're not going to be able to see the nose that closely. So as long as I can get it fairly close, then it's going to look pretty decent. So I'm pretty happy with the way that everything's lined up. So now I just want to try and work on that jaw, give him that real broad jaw that you would expect from an orc character. So let's just work on the chin, point that out a little bit. Just some of those types of features just really help create the look of this character. Now you can see, even with those darker areas around the face, it still actually looks pretty good, but we will be adding some facial hair and a few scars just to try and smooth those edges out just a little bit. Now with the body, I don't really want him to be really ripped or anything like that. I kind of just want you to know that there's some muscle there, just because obviously he is meant to be a warrior. This guy's going to be a very hands-on warrior. I did make him a striker because I really want to get that feeling that he just wants to punch you in the face. And I do have some cool stuff in his attire to help with that. Alright, so with the hair, I don't really want a lot of hair. I just kind of want that sort of white, slightly greyish kind of tone to the hair, just so that it does help you recognize the age of the character. Alright, we're going to put a little bit of style into the eyes, a little bit of color in there. I kind of want it to be like that yellowy, almost a Sith type color in the eye, right, just so you can start to see that color come through. Then on the other eye, we want it to kind of resemble a bit more of an injury that he's had. Right, now with the beard, I've kind of gone for a mixture of the sideburns and the goatee, just to try and give that real bushy kind of look to it. Yes, I did kind of scroll through just to see what was available in there, just to try and complete the look. There's a few ideas that I had, but I really just kind of want it to look like one solid beard. Alright, so that's kind of where we're at. Go for the same color as the hair. One thing you should be aware of though, when you're creating a character like this that's going to have a lot of parts, a lot of images, it all adds to the amount of layers that you put on there. So even little things like eyebrows and stuff like that, if your image has them, you don't necessarily need to put them on there, because it's just going to add more layers to it. I did only because I really want that kind of white look just on the eyebrows as well. Alright, but to me that doesn't look too bad. Right, now on the side there, I've got this little scar image that I created, and I did use the side of his face to actually match this to when I cut it out, so that way it's going to fit pretty close to the image there. Alright, so that's going to go around the eye, which is why we did that little eye injury. And then we can put a second one of these images just on the side, which will cover up that gap just where that skin is next to the beard there. Alright, we just stretch that out. We don't quite want it to go into the hair at the top. Just blend that so it looks like one smooth mark going up the side. Alright, and then we can put a third one just on the cheek on the other side, just to fill in that little gap over there. I have sped this video up quite a bit because loading images and things like that just takes so long in this game. Alright, so we just sit that on the side, and it's just going to help blend the face into the rest of the character there. Alright, so we don't just have that variation in the skin tone. Right, so like I said, when you actually have the character in the game, you're not going to notice some of those things, but I do like to try and correct them as best as possible while I'm doing it. So there's a good look at how the face ended up. So he does look very orcish, which is obviously what we wanted to achieve there. Now I am going for the hair, even though some of this will be covered up at different stages. So put the hair on the chest, the back, the arms. We will put it on the legs as well. Alright, now I've got this little tattoo that I'm putting on his shoulder here, which I've kind of used as like the clan logo. Now what I did, it was just a black image, but I've put like a skin like a damaged skin tone over the top, so it's going to look more like a branding, because I figured, you know, orcs aren't going to have these fine tools. They're more likely to brand each other for tattoos and things like that. The same with the back image there. You can see that it's got like a burnt sort of skin tone over the top of it, just so it looks a little bit more brutal as far as branding the orcs are concerned. Now the tattoo that I'm going to put on his arm here, the image that I actually used over the top of it was actually burnt toast. So it actually does look kind of funny, but it still gives it a completely unique texture to the tattoo that you wouldn't be able to just normally mix with the colors from the in-game version of it. These images can usually just be found on Google, so they're not hard to find some of these things. As far as cutting them out is concerned, I know obviously not everyone's going to have access to things like Photoshop and some of those high-end editing programs. There are some apps out there that you can use to remove backgrounds on logos and other things, so you know, you can look into them. They will help you just create some better images on your characters. I'm sure that there are plenty of tutorials on YouTube that can help you with that. The image that you can see me putting on his arm now is not actually for this. It's not necessarily a tattoo. It's actually going to be a part that's going to be underneath something else that I'm going to do for his attire, just to help tie all that together. The only thing you've got to look at when you are putting images on the arms, there seems to be sort of a few different places where as you start to move around, it will start to blur like it's a different part altogether. So you've got to try and find that right place where you can put the images together. Sometimes you might have to put a couple of them on there just to blend them in together, and they will kind of blur in some areas. So you just have to be really aware that sometimes the images that you use may not always match up. So just be careful of what you do use. For this one, it's not hugely important, but this kind of wiry effect, it does actually seem to blend in quite well, even though I had to sort of use 3 images to get it to where I needed it to. This will actually be the foundation to essentially the centerpiece of this character. And as you're watching this, the character is currently available on, the completed character is available on Community Creations. I'll just pop up the hashtags. So any of those should lead you straight to him. You will have completed movesets and entrance as well, so you're not going to have to build anything on him unless you want to modify himself, which you're more than welcome to do. Now, just while I'm going through the pants here, the idea that I had on this, obviously with the having that sort of beast around the waist as the belt, does look very tribal chief, so that's why I chose that one. Those patches I didn't really like all that much, so what I kind of wanted to do with that is almost reverse it, so the main part will look like kind of a leather or cloth sort of overlay on chainmail, and those patches will just kind of be where over time the material is worn off the chainmail and the chainmail has started to come through. At least that's what I'm kind of going for. Hopefully if you guys download it and you see the character, you'll really see what I was trying to create there. So we just put these images over the patches, and what I did with the chainmail image, I actually had another image underneath of a tear in paper, so that way as I put it over the top, it did kind of look like that as well. Now you can see on the edge there where it has kind of stretched a little bit, which is what I was talking about in certain parts of the image where, or on the certain part of the part that you're trying to edit, it does stretch. So I do have another image there that I can kind of cover that up where it's not stretching. And it's also going to add to another smaller detail, I guess, just on the pants itself. So it is tearing away in multiple areas. Just got that little spot on the butt there that we can cover up. Because the patches that were already on this did kind of look a little tacky, and I didn't really think it would suit the character that much. I wanted it to look a little bit more battle worn than just general worn, and Mum decides that she wants to sew some patches on there so she doesn't have to buy new pants. Now obviously you guys don't have to go to this amount of detail when you're creating characters. I always say it's your game, you play it your way. I'm just one of those people that when I'm creating something, I kind of get these images in mind and I really have to complete the character just for my own mental well-being, I guess. It's just that creative, almost perfection that I just need to be able to complete the character. Now with the boots, we're not going to go anything major. I didn't want the mismatch boots. I wanted him to kind of really resemble the chief, so he's going to have the better gear that he's worn. I'm just going to change up some of the metal on that just so it stands out a little bit more. If we edit everything on every part, we're going to run out of parts to be able to edit. And with something like the boots as well, it's very difficult, especially if you've got laces and other patches, because what the game doesn't allow, which I really wish it would, is allow you to choose a part of that image just to put a custom image over the top. Say for example here, where it's got those leather straps, if I really wanted them to look like worn leather or something like that, I could get my own image, and as I pasted it over, it would only put it on that part of the image rather than the entire glove. But that's something maybe down the track they can do. I understand that it may be a little bit more difficult than what we think it might be for the developers to do things like that. But I really hope it's something that they can add in future games, because I just think from a creative point of view, it would give some of the core creators out there just that little bit more flexibility to be just that extra original on some of the designs that they come up with. I mean, it does allow you to select sections of a part and change the material, change the color. So why not just add something where you can put another image over the top? So what I'm actually doing here with this glove, I wanted that gauntlet to really look like it's got some blades on there. What I always try and do, if I'm going to put an image over the top of something, I try and get the part underneath to just resemble what I want to do. So that way, if the image doesn't quite stretch where I need it to, or it does kind of glitch out a little bit, you're not going to notice that underneath it. Say for example, if some of those blades were, I don't know, purple or something like that, and you wanted to put this metal tone over the top and it didn't quite stretch in a certain area, you're going to get something purple that's just standing out, and it's just not going to quite look right. So for the blades, it's kind of like a foil type look, so it's really like a jagged metal once you put it over the top of the blades. Then I've got another metal image that I can just put over the front of it there, and then I can bring it up close to where the blades start, just so that most of that image will stay on the blades and not on the rest of the gauntlet. Now I do have one extra little special thing that I want to put on top of this. We're just going to fix the back of this up first though. But it's all about those little details that are just going to make him look that little bit more special. And if you really took a close look at the thumbnail, then I'm sure that you're going to know what's coming here. But we want everyone to think this guy has seen a lot of battles and he wants to wear that with pride. So we've got these little spatter tones that I'm going to be putting on some of this equipment. We don't need it to cover the whole thing. It's just got to look like it's done a fair bit of butchery. So this is really how we can use some of these lucha designs and turn them from just kind of pieces that are on their gear into something that can really look more like a weapon. Then we add this other tone to it, so it's not just necessarily the blade there, but also the runoff from that. So without getting too descriptive, I just really want to make sure that everyone can kind of see what this is meant to be rather than me having to tell them. So if you were to look at that image, you're like, yeah, that's like a bladed gauntlet. You don't have to think twice about what it might, or about why I might have used that particular part. Now, if you're going to download an Orc Warrior, you really want to know that that's what you've got there. So when he's doing some of his moves on other characters in the game, it's going to look more painful just if he gives someone a forearm. Right, let's just put a little bit more detail on the glove there, as though there's a little bit of runoff from the gauntlet, so it looks like he has been wearing all of that at the same time. Now for the right arm, the idea that I kind of had in mind for this is to make his arm really his weapon. So he doesn't need to go into the battle with an axe, he doesn't need to hold a shield, he doesn't need anything like that. I really want you to feel like his arm is the weapon itself. So we're just going to start with this glove that obviously has a lot of metal on there, so you can imagine if he did punch someone with that, it's going to do damage just because of the metal on the glove. And again, we've got our images that we can put on here. I'm going to put something on the inside because, obviously if you grab someone, it's still going to try and cut them. Probably does sound a little bit morbid, but what can I say? I like my orcs. Alright, so we just put a little bit more detail on the back of the hand and the knuckles. Alright, I don't really need to go up any higher. I'm not going to touch the rest of the glove because that's going to be covered up. Now there is one forearm guard that I did see here that really suits what I want to do. And it's another one of those lucha type gauntlets that we're just going to modify to really make it look like a weapon. And the fact that they are quite twisted and jagged looking blades does kind of suit an orc, because I don't really like having those clean polished looks when it comes to orcs, because they don't seem like the greatest of engineers. They just like to grab scraps of things that are just going to hurt people, and that's what that gauntlet looks like to me. So we're just going to put some metal underneath it. That's just going to be our base. And then I've got another image that I did over the top there, where it is like metal on the edges, but I wanted to have more of a design that I could put down the middle, just to give it that little something extra to make it look like it was a custom weapon that he either made or was made for him. And you'll see that in just a sec here. Alright, again, it was just another random image that I found on Google that I thought, what could I do with that? And I thought, that could actually go down the center of the glove there. I just kind of want that to stretch just on the gauntlet part, not over the blades, so it kind of looks like the blades will come out from underneath it. Alright, now you can kind of see where the image didn't stretch all the way to the edges of the blades, but that's okay because, like I said, we've got some other cosmetics that we're going to add to this just to mess it up a little bit and really make it look like it's a weapon that he's used quite a lot in battle. And this is another way that you can use some of your images where, even though it was meant to be almost a circle patch, because I've moved it to the side, it's just covering things in a different way, so you're not seeing the whole circle. So you don't have to get different images for every part that you do. You can just try and use some of the images that you have in different ways. And that way you don't have to upload as many images either. And guys, don't forget to subscribe to the channel. So I do have a few other orcs that I want to build as well, and I want to create like a 4-man faction, so one of each type in there. So yeah, the ideas that I have are going to be pretty unique, just like this one, so you don't want to miss out on any of them. What I do actually want a little bit of help from the community for is, what should I name this faction? It's one of those things I've never really been good at with names and things like that, but I just want something really cool that could help these guys have their own identity as a faction. So pop any thoughts in the comments down below, and I'll be more than happy to have a look at any names that you guys want to put forward, and if there's one there that really represents these guys, I'll make sure that I use it. And also, besides orcs, I do actually have a few other really cool ideas for characters, and again, using non-standard type faces, so we're going to do some pretty creative stuff on this channel, so make sure you do subscribe because you really don't want to miss out on some of that stuff. Alright, so what we're doing with the arm here, we're just adding some more spikes and things like that. Now you probably noticed there it didn't let me put any images on that particular piece, but there was nothing else that I really could see that would fit the character. So I thought I'll just make the spikes a little more metallic red just to try and get that same effect. Now, as you can see, the tattoo that I put underneath everything there, or that image, that wiry image that I put underneath everything there, that's just helping connect this whole upper arm part. So anything that's not covered up by a particular item, then it doesn't look out of place with the arm coming through. I just wanted this whole piece right up to where this is here to look like it was one weapon that was just attached to his arm. So once we're finished that, I've got one final piece just to tie that all together. But overall, I actually think this looks pretty good. So we've just got to put a couple of these images on here. So I've just got like this bolted steel look. And it won't matter where it doesn't quite line up there, because that part's going to be covered up anyway. So it's more just that under part that I want to try and get right there. It is kind of annoying how some parts don't stretch the image. It just blurs it and doesn't want to make it look like you're even on the same part anymore. But there's not too much I can really do about that, so we've just got to make things look as good as possible. Again, where it's just kind of bent around like that, it's not that much of a big deal because the main bolt part of the image still looks intact, so it could kind of add to texture. But like I said, it is going to get covered up, and then I'm just going to put like a little splatter mark underneath just for anything that might show through when we put the other piece over the top. And for those of you that actually want to see him in action, I will put him in a match after we finish creating everything here. I'm going to put him in a match against Xavier Woods for the UpUpDownDown Championship. We'll see if we can take that off his hands. I really wanted to use Xavier Woods simply because, you know, he is a gamer. I figured that whole fantasy knowledge, maybe he's got a few ideas on how he could beat an orc, and you know, he might actually like being represented in that capacity as well. So we'll see what he can do and if he can hang on to that belt. Now, just on this final shoulder guard here, I've got like this battered sort of metal plate look that I'm going to put over the top here. So it's just something that's kind of look like he'll use it more as a shield, but because we've got those straps there as well, I've got to try and line it up as best as I can so that it can kind of finish there. But I do have another image to use on the straps themselves, so we might be able to take some of that back. It's just one of those awkward parts that it's very hard to line that image up like I wanted to. But I have like this black metal image that I'm going to put over the top of the strap there. I know it probably doesn't make as much sense for it to be metallic, but you're not really going to be able to tell that it is metal. But I just thought for a texture, it actually looks quite cool over the strap there. So it does kind of look like some real scrap bent metal type look that you can put over the top. I'm actually quite happy with the way that tattoo on his shoulder looks as well. It does really look like it's kind of been burnt and branded into the skin. And the one on the back there looks pretty good as well. What I also did when I had those tattoos, because they were just a black image to start with, when I was editing them just to cut out the white background, I made sure that it was kind of a little imperfect. So some of the finer edges I just kind of deleted out of the image before I made the mask for it, so that way it didn't look like it was just neatly carved into him. There's no perfection in any of the images. It's just some of those little details you're probably not going to pick up, but I just thought it would be something that I could use just on this particular idea, just to see how it looked once it's all been put together. Alright, so where that little mark was where the image is crossed over on the strap there, just thought I'd put like a little mark where it's kind of got some runoff onto the shoulder. I didn't want this to look like it was used as the weapon. It was just something that's kind of had the spatter marks on there just because it was in proximity to that blade on his arm. Alright, so overall I'm pretty happy with the way that turned out. Even on the pants, you can see as you zoom back the effect that chainmail image has, where it does kind of look like the chainmail has come through from underneath that sort of leather on the top. So it's just something to change it up so he's not just a generic patch here and there on the pants. It adds a little bit more character to what I'm trying to create. Alright, all I'm going to add at the end here is some headgear, but I've put too many layers on there, so what I can do is I can just remove the I can remove that spatter mark from underneath the glove, because you're not going to need that for the entrance. So I'll just come to that, we'll delete one of them, and that'll give me that extra layer. So this is another reason why I don't go into some of the detail with the teeth and things like that, because you don't really see it all that much, so it's not all that important. So all I'm going to do with this is change some textures. Just want to make those horns on the top there look a little bit more bone-like. So rather than just have them black, it's really the only thing I'm going to do. I don't need any extra images, even if I could put them there. It'd be too messy with so much detail there. The images would just keep crossing over each other, and it wouldn't really look all that good. So we can go with that, and that's him done. Alright, now on to our match. I actually quite like that pose on him as well. So you get to see the glove, you get to see the tattoos, and even the imagery on his face looks pretty good from that angle. even just that shine off the metal plate there actually looks pretty cool. Alright, so let's get stuck into our match. Overall, I'm really happy with the way that the image has turned, like all of the images have turned out there, on the pants, on the arm. Just hoping it doesn't glitch too much as we go through the moves. I have done all of his moves, so everything that you see here will actually be the moveset that he has if you download the character. At the moment, Woods has really taken it to him. He's a little bit slow off the mark, but that's alright. And also, just so you know, I don't like to build my characters right up to 100 overall rating. I like to try and keep them a little bit realistic. So, because my idea for him is he is a striker, he likes using those blades on his arms, that most of his attacks would be fist, forearm, elbow based. See, things like this where he's just clobbering as though he's trying to dig those blades straight in. The only kicks that you're likely to see are those little kind of generic moves that the AI seems to just put in there every now and then, even when you're not really trying to do it. So even his submission holds, I wanted it to look like he's really just trying to dig those blades in rather than just relying on his strength to make them tap. The whole idea is just to make those kinds of moves look that a little bit more painful. Because once you know that they're blades, you can just kind of imagine it a little bit differently as you're playing the character or playing against the character. Alright, Xavier just coming out with the baseball bat. Just thought, you know what? We're just going to really have to clobber him here. We need weapons. Alright, he's not really built for aerial, so I don't know why he's going up there. I did tone some of the aerial assault down. The leg strength I actually took down a little bit. Sort of thinking back to Shadow of War, if you've ever played that game, where the orcs that you recruit, they have their strengths and they have their weaknesses, so it's about finding that way to actually beat them. I kind of used that, kept that in mind when I thought about how this would play. So if you were trying to beat this guy, going airborne or going for the legs would actually be a better way to try and beat him rather than straight up brawling with him. Against the AI, you know, it seems to be doing okay. Just like him to block a little bit more rather than use his head to block, but again, that's okay. I think his overall was around about 92. Because I was actually making him the Warlord of the clan, I thought, you know, he would be a little bit stronger. So anyone else that I make after that would not surpass his overall statistics. Generally, I like to kind of put my created characters somewhere between that 85 mark up to around the 94 at the most. I just picked up the win. That big forearm, that was his finishing move. I really just wanted to make it look like he tried to take someone's head off with that forearm. I think the clothesline from hell is the alternate finishing move there. Sorry, Xavier, but you've lost your title to an orc. There's an orc with a pink and white title. Well, there you go. Alright guys, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it if you made it this far. Please leave me a like, don't forget to subscribe, and we'll be back with some more very unique cores. So it's orcs and plenty of other things. I don't want to give too much away just now. If there's something that you do want to see me try out, a certain type of character, feel free to pop that in the comments and I'll be considering all of them. Thanks again guys for watching. See you very soon.